You want to know what $60,000 sounds like when it's spent on somebody else's family? It sounds exactly like nothing. No phone call, no knock on the door, just a silence, so complete you could hear the refrigerator hum. That's what I got the day my daughter decided her mother-in-law's kitchen mattered more than my heart medication. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because you need to understand who I was before that Thursday in May, on account of the man walking into that day and the man who walked out of it aren't really the same fella. Name's Walter Nash, 63 years old, spent 31 years running the parts counter, and then the whole service department at a Ford dealership outside Tulsa, Oklahoma. The kind of job where men shake your hand and mean it, and you learn everybody's name because you'll be seeing them every 18 months whether they like it or not. I raised one daughter, Kayla, in a ranch house on Birchwood Lane, 3 streets over from a Baptist church, whose bells I could set my watch to. I'm not a complicated man. I take my coffee with too much sugar and not enough shame about it. I watch high school football on Friday nights, even though my own kid's been out of school 20 years, and I like being needed. Hold on to that last part, folks, because it matters later. 6 weeks before all this, my cardiologist put me on a new blood thinner after some numbers on a stress test he didn't love the look of. Nothing dramatic, he said. Just a maintenance thing. Take it every day, don't skip it, and for the love of God, don't run out. Well, my insurance decided the refill needed a prior authorization, and until that cleared, the pharmacy wanted $170 cash for a bridge supply. $170. I want you to sit with that figure a second, because it's going to come back around and bite me later, same as it did. I wasn't hurting for money, understand. I just sold 4 acres out past Broken Arrow that had been my daddy's, and that check was sitting in escrow, 12 days out from clearing. I was asset rich and cash poor for about a week and a half, the way any working man can be. So I did what any father does. I called Kayla. Said, "Hey, sweetheart, quick favor. Can you run by the Walgreens on 71st and grab my prescription? It's 170 even. I'm good for it, soon as the land money hits." She said, "Sure, Dad. No problem. Fast. Real fast. The kind of fast where you can tell somebody's already thinking about something 3 rooms away. I should have caught that. I didn't." Kayla came by that Thursday afternoon in these new sunglasses, the designer kind with the little gold hinge, and she stood in the middle of my own living room, not sitting, not even really looking at me, fiddling with those glasses instead. "Dad," she said, "honestly, things are super tight this month. Between Tyler's truck payment and the boys' baseball fees, we're watching every dollar." A bad month, she called it. I want you to understand something about me, folks. I don't push. 39 years of being her father, and if you ask my late wife's sister, she'll tell you Walter Nash does not push. So I nodded. I said, sure, I understand, because that's the thing I always say, the reflex, the sentence I reach for, instead of a single follow-up question. I was about to ask if maybe she could swing half, 85 now, the rest later, when her phone buzzed loud on the coffee table, speaker practically shouting into my den. A woman's voice, bright as a game show. "Kayla." The contractor just texted, "The kitchen's done, cabinets are in, come see it before the light goes." Kayla's whole face changed right in front of me. That tired, watching, every dollar look dissolved into something lit up from the inside. "Oh my gosh, we're on our way," she said, already turning for my front door before she'd hung up. "Tell Diane we'll be there in 15. Diane. My daughter said that name like it was Christmas morning. She shoved the phone in her purse, gave me this quick, tight smile, the kind you give a stranger holding a door for you, not your own father. "Anyway, Dad, gotta run. We'll catch up once the land money's in. Lock up behind you if you head out. And here's the part I need you to really hear, because it's the whole hinge of this story." I looked at my daughter, standing there in her new sunglasses, halfway out my door already, and I said, calm as anything, "I understand, honey. Don't worry about it." 3 words I've turned over in my head 100 times since, because I didn't understand, not even close. But it's the sentence I always say instead of asking the question that needed asking. She left. Screen door clapped shut behind her, that thin metal bang, and then it was quiet again. Just me, my recliner, and a bottle with 4 pills rattling around the bottom of it. I'll tell you, I thought about stewing over it. I didn't. I turned on the ball game and let it go. the way I've let everything go for 30-some years, because that's who I trained myself to be. Peacekeeper. Pushover. Forever. Pick whichever word suits you. It's the same man wearing different labels. About 2 hours later, my neighbor Doris called me over to my own front window, tickled pink about something, the way she gets when she thinks it's good news for everybody. "Walter, come look at this. Isn't that sweet?" I got up slow, my hips still catching on cold days, and pulled back the blind. There in the driveway, 2 houses down, where Diane Holt lives, my daughter's mother-in-law, was a brand new kitchen, showing through the bay window. They'd apparently just knocked clean open to the porch. Quartz counters catching the evening sun, and Kayla standing right there in the middle of it with her husband Tyler, both of them grinning for a photo Diane was taking on her phone. $60,000. That's what Tyler told me later it ran. Top to bottom, cabinets, counters, some kind of 6-burner range Diane had been wanting since her own husband passed. 60,000. I didn't say a word. Doris kept talking. Something about how generous the kids were being, how sweet, how Diane's face lit up like a kid's on Christmas morning. I just stood there with the blind pinched between 2 fingers, doing math I didn't want to be doing. $170 denied that afternoon, 60,000 delivered by supper time. Same day, same daughter, same wallet. Apparently, when the audience was right. I let the blind fall back into place, didn't slam it, didn't say a thing to Doris about what I was thinking, because, and this still embarrasses me a little, I genuinely didn't know what I was thinking yet. It hadn't formed into a shape. It was just a weight sitting low behind my ribs, the kind of feeling you get right before you throw up or right before you cry, and you can't tell which one's coming. I sat back down in my recliner. Watched the rest of that ball game. We lost. Fitting. Around 9 that night, after the house had gone quiet the way it does when it's just me in it, I got up out of that chair one more time and walked into the bathroom off the hallway. Flicked on that buzzing overhead light I've been meaning to replace since Obama's second term. Opened the medicine cabinet, took out the amber bottle. 4 pills left. I set them on the counter, cold laminate under my palm, reached into the drawer for the little pill splitter my late wife used to use on her thyroid medicine, still sitting there in the same spot 15 years on. I want to tell you. I hesitated. I didn't. Pressed the first tablet down. Snap. Sharp little sound, echoed off that tile louder than it had any right to. I have the second one the same way. My hands were steady doing it. Funny thing about real anger, the kind that's earned, and not the hot kind it doesn't shake, it settles, gets very, very still. I walked into my den after and pulled my old service log out of the bottom desk drawer, the same spiral notebook I used to track parts orders back before I retired. Hadn't opened it in probably 3 years. Clicked my pen, wrote 6 words plain as anything. May 14th. Pharmacy. $170. Denied. Closed the book. Squared it flat with the edge of the desk. I didn't know yet what I was going to do with that number. I just knew I wasn't going to forget it. And somewhere 2 houses down, my daughter was probably helping Diane pick out a new set of dish towels to match the backsplash, feeling like the best daughter-in-law in Tulsa County. No idea at all that 100 yards away, her own father had just started keeping a different kind of ledger on her. I turned off the light and went to bed. Lay there a long time staring at the ceiling fan doing its slow, tired turns. And for the first time in longer than I could recall, I wasn't thinking about my heart or my hip. I was thinking about Diane Holt. Because in 4 days, that woman was going to show up at my door with something in her hands, and whatever it was going to make that $60,000 kitchen look like the cheapest mistake my daughter ever made. 4 days. That's how long I had to wait, though I didn't know it yet. Nobody hands you a countdown clock. You just live the days as they come and hope you're paying attention when it matters. The next morning I got up, made my coffee too sweet like always, sat at my own kitchen table by myself the way I have most mornings since Carol passed. Called Kayla around 10 just to hear her voice, and she was still riding high about that kitchen, going on about the tile Diane picked, the farmhouse sink, how the contractor said it'd add real value to the house. "Isn't that great, Dad?" I said. "Sure is, sweetheart. Real nice." She caught something in my voice, I think, because she got quiet a second before some other line beeped in and she had to go. Kayla's sharper than people give her credit for when she wants to be. It didn't stay quiet long, though, not on my end. 2 days after that, still splitting pills into bitter little halves, still 8 days out from my land money clearing, I found out my nephew Marcus had heard the whole thing secondhand and wasn't shy about it. Marcus works with Tyler over at the roofing supply warehouse, and apparently the story going around the break room was that Walter Nash's granddaughter was footing part of the family bills lately, on account of Grandpa being a little tight since he sold his land, which wasn't even true, but it's the kind of thing that gets said when nobody bothers to check. What actually cracked it open, though, was Sunday dinner at Tyler and Kayla's, one of those family gatherings where everybody stands around the kitchen island, eating off paper plates and pretending it's not a production. Diane was there, still glowing about her new stove. I was standing by the sliding door with a plate I wasn't eating when I heard my late wife's sister, my sister-in-law Rhonda, corner Kayla, near the fridge, voice pitched low the way you do when you think a kitchen's bigger than it is. "Kayla, honey, I'm a little worried about your dad. Somebody told me his prescription got held up and he's been cutting pills to stretch them." There it is. Rhonda knew. Kayla didn't even look up from the vegetable tray. "Mom, I mean, it's fine, Aunt Rhonda. Dad's tight this month, that's all. He'll get his meds once the land money clears." Fine. 4 letters. My heart medication, my clotting risk, filed under fine. The same week her husband dropped $60,000 on his mother's kitchen like it was pocket change. I stood there with cold potato salad on a paper plate and felt that same low weight settle back behind my ribs. Here's what I didn't know yet, what I wouldn't find out for 2 more days. Diane was standing right there too, refilling her sweet tea, closer than either of them realized. And Diane Holt is not a woman who lets numbers sit crooked in her head. 30-some years keeping the books for her late husband's insurance agency will do that to a person. Numbers either add up or they don't, and when they don't, Diane goes looking for the reason. She didn't say a thing that evening, just quietly topped off her glass and went back to the porch to watch the kids run around the yard. But I caught her eye once across that kitchen island, just for a second, and there was something sitting in her face that hadn't been there an hour before. She was doing the same math I'd already done 4 days back. Let me tell you a little about the shape of this family, because you need to understand the trap I was sitting in before Diane ever showed up at my door. My late wife's sister Rhonda loves Kayla like her own, unconditional and a little blind about it, same as she loved my wife. And Kayla, bless her, is terrified, genuinely terrified of anybody in the family thinking she's not doing right by Tyler's side of things, because Tyler's people have money and mine, frankly, never did. Not real money. Not until that land sale. So when I finally told Kayla the whole truth of it later that week, the 170 denied, the 60,000 delivered, same day, same wallet, she didn't get angry at herself. She got scared. "Dad, please," she said, gripping my arm at my own kitchen table, eyes wet. "Tyler's mom does so much for us, watching the boys, helping with the mortgage that one time. I can't make this into something ugly. Just let me get you the money. It'll all work out. Please don't make a thing of it." Not, "I'm sorry," not, "that was wrong of me." Just fear, dressed up as pleading. I looked at my daughter, the same girl who once punched a boy in the mouth in 4th grade for making fun of my old truck, and I saw how small she'd let herself get around that family. I didn't argue. I nodded. "Okay, Kayla," I said quiet. "I hear you." But something in me had already moved past hearing her. I wasn't agreeing. I was just done spending breath on somebody who wasn't ready to be convinced. Meanwhile, Tyler was busy making a very different kind of mistake, the kind you only make once you've decided your father-in-law's silence means your father-in-law is harmless. He started calling that week, not to ask about my heart. Not once did he mention the prescription or how I was feeling. No, he called to talk about getting ahead of things. His words, regarding my land money, which by then was 5 days from clearing. "Hey, Walter," he said, breezy as a man selling siding. "Once that check comes through, we ought to sit down. Maybe talk about setting you up with something simpler, a joint account. Take some of the hassle off your plate, you know, at your age." At my age? I'm 63. not 93. I turned wrenches for 3 decades to build the stability that boy's been coasting on since he married into it. Sure, Tyler, I said. We'll talk. He heard agreement. I meant nothing of the sort. But that was exactly the mistake that whole family was making that week, mistaking my calm for my consent. Tyler genuinely believed, I think, that a man who wouldn't push back over $170 was a man who'd sailed clean past being any kind of threat. Just a soft, aging father-in-law, easing into needing to be handled. He had no idea I'd already started a ledger with his name in it, right under his mother's. And underneath all of it, the kitchen, the joint account talk, the breezy phone calls, was Diane herself, though not in the way you'd think. I want to be fair here, because it's easy to make her the villain and skip right past the real reason under it. Diane had buried her husband 18 months earlier and hadn't cooked a real meal in that old kitchen since, everything about that house reminding her of him. Tyler knew that. And that kitchen wasn't really a gift to his mother. It was a way of not having to sit with his own grief secondhand, buy her something shiny enough that neither of them had to talk about what the old kitchen actually meant. He'd taken out a high-interest home equity loan against their own place to swing it, co-signed in a way I didn't know about yet. But looking back, it explains everything. Why $170 felt like the sky falling. The same week, he was quietly on the hook for tens of thousands. It was never about the money. It never is. It was about what my request cost him in front of his mother versus what that kitchen bought him in front of her. In his head, the math made sense. In mine, it never would. My land money cleared on a Friday. I drove myself down to the Walgreens on 71st in my own truck, 15 years old and still running true, paid the full $170 myself, cash, like I should have been able to a week and a half earlier without asking anybody for anything. Picked up the full bottle, 30 days worth. Didn't split a single pill that night. Took the whole dose and felt my chest ease the way it was supposed to the whole time. And I thought, this is the last time being polite cost me my own health. I didn't know yet the real story hadn't even started. 4 days after that, a gray Tuesday morning, the kind where you can't decide if you need a jacket, there was a knock at my door. Firm. Deliberate. Not Kayla's knock, which is 2 quick taps before she's already turning the handle. This was slower, heavier. I opened it, and there stood Diane Holt. Just Diane, no Tyler, no kitchen photos on her phone to show off. She had a manila envelope in her hands, held out a little from her body like it might scorch her if she carried it too close. "Walter," she said. "Got a minute?" She didn't come in, stood right there on my porch. "I'm not staying," she said. "I just need you to have this. Open it before your daughter gets here." Kayla wasn't even coming over that I knew of. "Diane, what is this?" She looked at me a long second, and there was something in her face I hadn't seen from her before. Not anger exactly, more like disappointment aimed past me, at something bigger than the two of us standing there. "He thinks I'm on his side in this," she said quiet. "I'm not." She turned and walked back down my driveway to her own sedan and drove off without another word. I stood there on my porch, heart thudding a little harder than the doctor would have liked, holding an envelope I didn't understand yet. Went back inside, sat down at my kitchen table, the same table where Kayla had begged me to let it go, turned that envelope over twice before I finally broke the seal. First page was loan paperwork from a finance company I'd never heard of. My eyes moved down and caught on something that made my stomach turn over slow, like a truck downshifting on a hill, a home equity credit line, 19% APR. And under the property listed as collateral wasn't Tyler and Kayla's house at all. It was mine. My address, my parcel number, right there, on the secondary collateral line. I never gave anybody permission to put my house on anything. I turned to the second page and stopped breathing a second, because right at the bottom, next to a line that read, "Co-borrower authorization," was a signature, my signature, except I never signed it. Sat there and stared at that line until the letters stopped looking like words and just looked like shapes. WALTERNASH, forged in a hand that was almost right, close enough to fool a loan processor running through 50 files a day, not close enough to fool the man whose name it was supposed to be. 39 years I raised that girl, taught her to check her oil, taught her to shake a man's hand and mean it, taught her never once to sign something wasn't hers to sign. And yet here we were. I read the rest twice, slow, the way I used to read a parts invoice looking for the line item that didn't add up. It was all there, the 19% APR my house pledged as backup collateral, meaning if that loan went bad, the collectors would eventually be calling my number too, not just Tyler's. And clipped behind it all, a single handwritten page from Diane herself, no letterhead, just her own hand at the bottom. I refuse to be part of a gift built on a lie to my son's father-in-law. I want no part of this loan, Diane. I sat there a long time with that stack of paper in my lap. My hip was aching from standing on it earlier, and my coffee went cold in front of me. Around 10, Kayla called, breezy, asking if I wanted to come see the finished kitchen sometime this week. I told her to come by instead. She showed up an hour later, and I watched her face while she read it, page by page, the color draining out of it same as I imagined mine had. By the time she got to the forged signature, her hand was pressed flat over her mouth. Dad, She couldn't finish it. I knew about the loan, she said finally. I knew Tyler was stretched thin. I told myself it wasn't my business how he financed it. I swear to you I didn't know about this part. I know, I said, and I meant it. Kayla's sin was looking away, not forging anything. Different crime, different sentence. What are you going to do? She asked. Here's the thing about being the quiet one your whole life, folks. People assume when you finally do something, it's going to be loud. It's not. It's going to be final. My land money had cleared 11 days by then, just over $580,000 after the closing costs, the kind of number that changes what a man's options look like. I hadn't told Tyler the figure, didn't have to. He'd already started sniffing around 2 weeks earlier, back when he still thought I was just his soft, aging father-in-law who needed help managing things. He called that week, same breezy tone as ever. Hey Walter, heard the land money came through. That's great, real great. We should sit down with Diane's old accountant, get you set up with something simpler. He still thought I was the same man from 2 weeks back. Funny you should call, I said. Come by Sunday, family dinner. Bring Kayla. I'll have Diane there too. A pause on the line, half a second, but I heard it. Diane's coming too? Sure, I said. Woman's practically family now. New kitchen and everything. Let him sit with that a week. Sunday came, that first real stretch of Oklahoma warm weather, before the humidity turns mean. Kayla made a full spread trying to keep things normal. Fried chicken and her mother's old squash casserole recipe. The windows cracked so you could hear the neighbor kids 2 yards over. Tyler showed up first, good spirits, already talking before he was through the door about some promotion at the roofing company, regional something, and I honestly stopped following the details somewhere in there. Kayla came in behind him, quiet, complimenting the casserole before she'd even tasted it. Diane arrived last, nodding at me once on her way past, a nod that said, I'm ready when you are. We ate, talked about nothing much, the Sooners' recruiting class, the boys' Little League schedule. Tyler was in rare form all through dinner, dropping little hints about squaring away my finances now the big check had cleared, about taking some weight off my shoulders. Kayla nodded along the way. She'd nodded along at, it's fine 3 weeks earlier. Let him finish his plate. A man talks the most right before he stops being able to. When Kayla started clearing dishes, I asked her to leave them and sit back down. That's when the room noticed something had shifted. I reached under my chair and pulled out the folder my attorney'd had ready that week, a good downtown Tulsa firm, the kind Tyler had never once thought his quiet father-in-law would ever need. Tyler, I said, you mentioned wanting to help manage things now the land money's in. I appreciate that. So let me tell you exactly how things are being managed. I opened the folder. 2 weeks ago, I set up an irrevocable trust, fully funded and executed as of last Tuesday. I slid a page across the table toward him. You are not listed as trustee. You are not a beneficiary. Not now, not ever, unless a court orders the trust dissolved, and my attorney assures me that's not happening. Tyler laughed. One short disbelieving bark. Wait, what? Walter, you can't just, I can. And I did, I said, calm and steady. Same voice I'd used the day I told him I understand. Except this time, understanding wasn't what I was offering him. The trust's income, I went on, is being directed to a fund I've set up through my church, covering emergency prescription costs for seniors who fall through the insurance cracks the way I nearly did. $170 at a time, mostly. Let that number sit a second. You could have heard a pin drop at that table. Kayla's fork froze halfway to her plate. Tyler's face went through about 4 different colors. "This is a joke," he said. "Walter, I'm your son-in-law." "You're a man who forged my signature," I said, not raising my voice, not needing to. "A man who let me split heart medication in half while spending $60,000 on a kitchen for someone else. You're not my family right now, Tyler. You're a stranger I used to trust." He shot to his feet so fast his chair nearly went over. "Over $170? You're doing all this over $170? There it is." He still thought this was ever about the money. Kayla stood up next, and I watched her do something I wasn't sure she had left in her. She looked at Tyler, really looked, the way a wife looks at a husband when she finally sees him clean for the first time in a long while. "I knew about the loan," she said, voice cracking. "I told myself it wasn't my business. I let my own father cut his medication in half to keep the peace in this family. I was a coward, Tyler, but I am done protecting your pride at my dad's expense." She turned to me, tears running now. "But Dad, please, I don't want to lose this family. Can't we fix it, all of us, together?" I looked at my daughter, 39 years. I loved her enough to be honest with her even now. "Kayla, I love you," I said. "But love doesn't mean letting people destroy themselves. Tyler made his choices. He'll live with them." I turned back to my son-in-law, chest heaving, looking for somewhere to point his anger, and finding nowhere to put it. "Here's what else you should know," I said. "When Diane filed her formal, notarized withdrawal from that loan with the lender, it triggered a compliance review of the whole application. The moment their officer cross-references that forged co-borrower signature, they're calling the entire balance due, effective immediately." Tyler's face went white. "How do you and Diane?" I nodded across the table. "She already refused to be part of it, in writing, 2 weeks back." Every head at that table turned to Diane. She hadn't said a word the whole meal. She set her fork down, folded her hands, and looked at her son with something that wasn't quite pity and wasn't quite disgust, just tired disappointment, the kind that comes from a woman who genuinely thought better of her boy once. "You had a good father-in-law, Tyler," she said. "You threw him away trying to impress me. I never asked you to. I just wanted my son to sit at my table and talk to me again. That's all I ever wanted." Tyler looked at Kayla, waiting for her to take his side. She didn't. She was staring at him with the exact look Diane had just given him, the look of someone realizing the man across from her isn't who she thought she married. "You told me you had savings for that kitchen," Kayla said quietly. He didn't answer. Didn't have an answer for anybody at that table anymore. "You're holding a loan you can't afford, secured against a house that isn't even yours," I said, and my voice stayed level the whole way through, because I wasn't the one who needed to raise it. "That's not my doing, Tyler. That's yours. You built it. I just stopped paying for it." He left that night without finishing his coffee. Didn't slam the door. Didn't have the nerve left in him for theater, I think. Just walked out the same quiet way he'd walked in 3 weeks earlier, keys jingling in his pocket. Except this time there was nothing waiting for him in the driveway but his own truck and a debt he couldn't outrun. The bank did exactly what I said they would. Inside 2 weeks, Tyler's line of credit got flagged and frozen the day the fraud review hit the balance called in early. Kayla moved into her Aunt Rhonda's spare room 3 weeks after that dinner, took the boys with her for a while. I don't know all the details of what happened in that marriage after that's between the two of them. But I know Tyler called this house 6 times over those 2 weeks, and I let every single one go to voicemail. The 7th time he showed up on my porch himself, thinner than he'd looked 3 weeks back, like the whole thing had physically taken something out of him. "You ruined my life," he said, standing right where Diane had stood with that envelope. "Over $170, Walter. You ruined my life over $170. I looked at my son-in-law, heart steady under me now, the ledger with his name in it locked in my desk drawer where it belonged. "I didn't ruin your life, Tyler," I said. "You spent $60,000 trying to buy your mother's approval when all it would have taken to keep mine was a 15-minute drive to the pharmacy. You built your own trap. I just stopped paying the note on it." He didn't have anything to say to that. He never did. Not really. Turned around and walked back to his truck, and I watched him go the same way I'd watched him drive off toward that kitchen weeks before. Except this time, I wasn't the one left small and quiet in the driveway. 6 months on, I'm out in my garage refinishing an old dresser that belonged to my wife's mother. Nothing fancy. Just something to do with my hands now that my chest doesn't remind me of itself every time I bend over. Kayla comes out, softer than she used to be, humbler, but still my daughter, still here. "Tyler called," she says. "Wants to see you, says he's changed." I don't stop sanding. "People don't change, honey," I say. "They just learn to hide who they are a little better." "I know," she says. "But he was still my husband. I still want to believe people can do better." I set the sandpaper down, look at her. "I gave that boy nothing but respect for 11 years, I say. I never once taught him how to lie to a man's face. That's not a lesson he learned from anybody in this family. That was his own choosing. What if he's ready to choose different?" I think on that a long moment, longer than she probably expects. "Then he knows where I live," I say finally. Doors open. But he doesn't walk through it till he's paid back what he owes. Not the money, the trust. And that kind of thing takes its own time. Kayla nods, and after a while she goes back inside. I look out past the garage at the evening light coming down easy over the same streets I've lived on my whole life, and for the first time in longer than I can remember, I'm not angry. I'm not bitter either. They say the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference, and I'll tell you, I don't hate that boy. I'm just no longer willing to drown myself, trying to save somebody who's decided he doesn't want saving. I built every bit of this life with these two hands. If Tyler wants a life worth having, he's going to have to build his own, brick by brick, the way the rest of us did. That's not revenge, whatever folks want to call it. That's just the cost of being a man who tells the truth.